In today's video, I'm going to attempt to tackle the topic of paddling technique, and hopefully with some of the information that you gain from this video, you'll be able to race faster in this upcoming season. Before we get started with the content of the video, I need to let it be known that this is my personal take on paddling technique, and what it is a collaborative of information that I've gained from talking to multiple Triple Crown winners and people that have placed very high in the Triple Crown races. Some of this information's come from articles like ones written by Rebecca Davis, or videos like Mike Freeze, or a lot of one-on-one time that I've had with Mike, and tidbits from Proulx, and a lot of working with the Schlimmers. So take that with a grain of salt, that this information that I'm going to provide to you guys is all based on that, and it's my interpretation of it. I've wanted to do this video for a long time, and did not know if I should do this indoors or outdoors. I decided to use my indoor setup so that way we can have a more contained environment. The first thing I'm going to discuss are body positions at key points during the stroke. Then I'm going to go over body part rolls, and then I'm going to finish this by sequencing. So what's the sequence of events that should be occurring throughout the stroke as this is happening, 60 to 80 times in any given minute during a race. First key moment that I'm going to discuss body positioning at is what I would call the catch entry phase. But the catch is the initiation of the power phase, okay? So the key things in this position is that we need first to have this blade buried, okay? Now for a reference for our indoor setup that I have here, this needs to be bang right there. So your heels are going to be close to being at the water line. If you start applying pressure before the blade is submerged, you're going to cavitate the water, and you're not going to get an efficient forward thrust of the boat. That's the most important thing. We need to try to get this as far forward as possible, but still be in a powerful position. We want to be rotated at the hips, so we're rotating this way if we're paddling on this side, the hips, okay? So we can get further into our reach and still be in a good, powerful position. We want to make sure that our lower back is not rounded out like this, but we're sitting upright. And then this shoulder is going to be dropped down, so when we put it in, our hand is going to be at the gunnels. And this is going to help ensure that that blade is buried into the water. We can start the application of the power phase. There's a positive angle on the paddle, and this hand is going to come over. We don't want it cranked up here because you're going to have a whole bunch of shoulder issues. You want to have it here so you can have pressure that's going to help keep this blade buried into the water, but it's right here and we're straight. When you're looking forward, this blade is straight. We're straight like this and not like this. To recap that position at the catch, so this is at the initiation of the power phase, our bottom hand needs to be at the gunnels. Our top hand's going to be here, right about eye level. And this is a reference point that I use very regularly, because if my bottom hand's at the gunnel and my top hand is at my eye level, I know that the blade has to be buried. This shoulder should be dropped, but not artificially by pushing this one back. So it's here, and I need to have rotation in my hips and try to keep my core as tight and as locked in, so I can now initiate that power and provide as much forward thrust as possible. The second position is the end of the power phase and the start of the exit. Now we're basically going to unwind our body. So we are going to be unwound at the end of this stroke. My top hand is not going to move that much because we're trying to fulcrum the paddle like this off of the top hand. This is going to give us a nice long sweep through the water, which is going to extend the length of our power phase, because we can do positive work when the shaft is positive all the way until actually it's about 12 degrees negative, because that's generally what bent shaft paddles are, is 12 degrees. So right now we are optimally pushing the boat straight, and from here to here we're pushing the boat up and forward. Anytime we move past this, now we're starting to pull the boat down. So if we take it and we hinge off of here, we have a nice swoop that extends the length of this stroke. Okay, so I got a little off topic, so let's get back to the position that we should be at the end of the power phase. The bottom arm is going to still be at that roughly that same level as when you started the power phase. Now what that's going to do is, because we're pulling this straight back, as you can see my shoulders, watch my shoulder. My shoulder comes up and my torso comes up because I'm pulling back. So my hand goes from down and my shoulder goes down to get me as far forward as I can, but still be in a powerful position. And then I'm going to be unloading my hips, or my hips going to push back, and my shoulder's going to come back and up, which is going to put my hand here. So we're going to be at this position. My top hand hasn't moved much, but now because I'm more upright, it's going to be more at chest level than eye level. To recap the position at the exit or the end of the power phase, we are going to be more upright with our body. Our shoulder is back now to neutral. My hand's still at the gunnel, and this hand's now going to be more at chest level, but notice that my blade is going to be pretty close to being vertical. Okay? So those are the two main positions that I focus on when thinking about paddling technique. Now I'm going to break down our body part rolls. We're going to talk about our legs, our torso, and our arms. Our legs we need to get them into this movement. Our legs are very powerful, and they're going to be able to provide a lot of power to help us move that, to accelerate that boat and make it so it can go as far as we can per stroke, which is really the name of the game when we're talking about paddling technique. So what I kind of think of is like a bicycle. Your legs are going to be pumping kind of similarly to this, but because I don't have pedals on a bike and I just have a foot brace, my hips is gonna rotate instead of my hips staying there, and then my legs are rotating on pedals. Both legs are used throughout the course of the stroke. So when my hips are either neutral or back on the paddling side, that means I've ended the stroke. This leg is going to be straighter because I've pulled through that whole stroke. Now to get to the next stroke, I'm going to then push from this leg, which is going to help rotate my hips back so I can get into a good healthy rotation here. Notice that this leg is now bent. This is when we're at the catch. We are now at the catch, and then as we're applying the force through our power phase, this leg's going to extend and this leg's going to bend a little bit more because we're just rotating on this axis for our hips. The next thing we want to talk about is our torso, okay? You want your torso nice and locked in so we can, this is one of the biggest areas that you'll lose power, because if you're rounded out like this, you just think of doing like a deadlift, you're not going to be able to produce a lot of power, a lot of force when your back's rounded like this, and it's very bad for your back. So you want to try to keep very good posture, and that's going to help you rotate all the way up to your shoulder. So the torso pretty much stays locked in because we're rotating at our hips and the shoulders together. It's not, the hips are locked and just rotating with our upper body. It's not going to be as efficient of a movement as moving our hips and our shoulders in conjunction together, but that's also because we're locking in our torso. The only other thing that happens with our torso is that there's a little bit of a forward reach, okay? So we're not just sitting here and staying upright like this the whole time. We reach forward and then we come back. So when you're watching a really good paddler, you're going to see that he not only rotates, but he also comes forward and he comes back and unwinds throughout his stroke. The last thing is the arms, okay? So the arms are going to translate all of our power from our legs and our torso down to the blade, down to the water. When this bottom hand needs to be at the gunnel at the start of the power phase and stay roughly at that level. The top hand should never do anything really funky, and it's going to be at your eye height at the start of the catch, and then as you're unwinding all this power through your stroke, it's going to come, and now it's going to be more towards your chest like I discussed before, and then it's going to help, in my opinion, the next big thing for this hand is going to help with exit, okay? And we're going to talk about this in the sequencing, but then this hand's going to come down to help take the blade out of the water as efficiently and not hurting the trajectory of the boat, the glide, if you will, of the boat. So it's going to come down, and then this bottom arm is now going to go back to the catch, and the top arm is going to snap it over to help set the blade in the water so we can then perform another power phase. And again, it's right here, it's right at my eye level. I know the blade is then buried and I'm ready to do another power stroke. Now, everything that we've discussed is kind of a preamble for this last segment, and that is sequencing. Now, I'm going to start at the end of the power phase because I think that that's the most appropriate time so we can work through the sequencing to get a nice fluid motion, okay? So if we go back to that position that we should be at the end of our power phase, we are going to be, this bottom hand's going to be at the gunnel level, roughly, okay? This top, we're more upright, we've come back upright. This hand's going to be now closer to our chest level than at our eye level, okay? And we've unwound our hips, okay? So we are at this part. So now we need to talk about how do we take the blade out of the water while not affecting the glide on the boat. If you take this blade straight out from the side, it's like pumping the brakes, because from when it goes from here all the way here, the boat's trying to go this way, but we're not letting it. We are pumping the brakes. So I don't think that's the best way to do it. You can let it come out and it's going to pop out on its own, okay? But that's probably not going to get you the stroke rate that you're looking for to race as fast as you want to race. So in my opinion, you need to do somewhere in the middle of that. So the sequencing would be from here, the top hand is going to go down and forward. As you can see, it's going to let me slip it out, and this top hand's going to come up just a little bit and out to the side. So what it does is it's allowing this to still go through its sweep, okay? But I'm going to slice it out to the side, okay? So I'm here, and this comes down, and this one comes out. So now I'm out of the water. From here, this is what we would call the recovery phase. From here, I am going to try to take this hand and move it in as most of a direct route back to the start of the power phase. So this is through entry and what we would call the catch to the initiation of power. Okay, so from here, this hand's gonna go down, forward to the gunnel. Okay, this top hand is not gonna do much work because it doesn't have that far to go, and it doesn't need to do anything until the very end where we're going to slice that into the water. Okay, so as we come here, bang, now we're ready to initiate the power phase. So again, that recovery is this hand's going to stay, and what happens with our body is now I'm pushing with this leg to get ready for my initiation of the power phase. In this position, this shoulder drops because it's following my hand down to the gunnel, and my core is nice and tight, and I'm getting that slight forward tilt at my hips. So from the exit, bang. Now we're at the initiation of power phase, okay? And from here, like I've kind of discussed this a little bit earlier, is we're going to unwind from this position, boom, to here, okay? So this is the start of the power phase. We're pushing through with our leg. We're engaged in our core, so we can transfer all of this power from our legs. This is going to apply down pressure, but not forward pressure, because we want to swing it on a pendulum like this. So it's here, and boom, we're unloading and we're taking all this power from our legs and our core and our lats and unwinding, so I can end the power phase upright, hands at the shoulder level, and my arms pretty much in line with my body. My hands still at the gunnels, okay? And then this hand's gonna drop forward, and this is gonna come out, and this is where we just started the stroke, okay? So everything is gonna go bang, bang, boom, and just like that, okay? So that's the sequencing that should happen. So things that you can always think about is that forward hand at the gunnel. Think about what's happening with your hips in relation to your shoulders and what's happening with this top hand. A lot of times, a lot of people like to bring their top hand. This is one of the things that I did, is I would bring my top hand up and then I'd come down like this and bang, like this. Okay, so now I'm pulling back, but I'm not in the water yet. So I'm not applying any forward thrust until I'm fully buried, which I'm already here. And then I have a very short application of power to the blade. So one thing is, this hand doesn't need to go above your eye, okay? Because if you look back at our technique, we come here, this drops to help us, and this hand doesn't. You'll see some guys, you know, like Andy Treble does it a little bit, where he picks this hand up. But that's so he can really get a nice strong catch. So you don't need to pick it up though, because you drop this hand to get the blade out of the water. That just needs to go back, and this goes here, okay? So this hand doesn't need to come all the way up. You want to be as efficient as possible, so as the least amount of effort to go from one position to the other is going to be the best for you. Okay, so that wraps up the major talking points that I wanted to discuss about paddling technique. I know this is probably not still all-inclusive, so if you have questions, don't be afraid to leave them in the comments below. And as always, guys, if you like this content, make sure to like and subscribe if you haven't already. Until next time, guys, paddle hard.